Good evening, everyone. Time for another live on the buses question time. I hope you all had a lovely Easter. You know what to do. You can go and post up any questions that you have about on the buses, anything to do with the cast, the crew, films, my books, the episodes, filming locations, and anything else to do with on the buses. I'll give you updates on the planned holiday on the buses event for later on this year as well. And also, if anyone that's with us has went to the walking tour, you can give me some feedback if you want on that. You can also give us some feedback if you watch the live watch along of the On the Buses film that I've done about a week or so ago. So just post up any questions that you've got, and as soon as I see them on the screen here, I'll answer them for you. So on the holiday on the buses front event, which will be, hopefully it'll be sometime in July. Nothing's actually set in stone yet, but we are hoping to make an announcement within the next few days. That's for the 50th holiday on the buses event, official cast of the union. That'll be in Prestatyn in about the last week of July sometime. Date hasn't been finalised yet. We've not got absolute confirmation of things, but watch the space. It'll pop up. You'll see the information on the relevant Facebook channels, and I'll post up details here as well about it when we've got it actually set in stone. So just post up any of your questions here, and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. As for live location videos, I am hoping to make more visits. Another visit to Prestatyn, hopefully to do live videos in and around the holiday camp. Also hoping to visit Haywards Heath, which is South London, where they filmed on the omnibuses, to do videos there. There'll be two separate clips, obviously, and there'll probably be another clip or two down to London and Boreham Wood as well at some point later on in the year. Also, for anyone, obviously, if you've got any feedback about the walking tour, anyone that is watching that came to the walking tour, if you want to post up your thoughts on it, then you can do as well. I may also as well try and fit in another walking tour sometime, maybe later on this year, maybe sometime around autumn time, maybe September, October, something like that. That's not set in stone yet either. It's just a thought kicking around in my head. Russell, it was chosen because Pontins were open. I've just opened up the holiday camp at Prestatyn, and they were looking to promote it. They were looking at ways of promoting it, and when they heard about the talk of this film, obviously they both collaborated on it then, and that's why the Pontins offered up the use of their holiday camp to film that and all of that. So it was a no-brainer basically to have the use of a real holiday camp to do the filming at. So that's why they went for Prestatyn North Wales. The holiday camp, I think, in Prestatyn, that opened up in 71, so it'd only been open about maybe 18 months when they, well, maybe even less than that, maybe just over a year when they, or maybe just under 2 years by the time that they came to film up there. And if you notice me while I'm on the video and I'm moving my arm around, it's because I've got a bit of a frozen shoulder. It's giving me jip, so Just trying to keep it loose, sort of thing. So if you notice me moving my arm about, that's the reason why I'm doing that. So keep the questions coming in, and I'll answer them for you. I'm going to see them on the screen. Yeah, Russell. So both suited both basically, Russell. The having the holiday camp just open. Pontins were looking to advertise it, and obviously with a new film coming along, a Holiday on the Buses film, that was how they got together to collaborate on that front of the filming at the camp. Well, Stephen got injured on the when he was filming the scene in the Mutiny on the Buses when he fell into the foam-filled pit. They had to they stopped filming and they had to pull Stephen out because he didn't come up when he was supposed to come up, and they had to clear the foam from his airways because he was choking on the foam. So I suppose you could call that an injury. And obviously there was the injury. You do actually see it as actually on film when you see. I think it's the episode Friends in High Places when Blakey's spying on he's looking through the manager's door when he's talking to Mum when she's getting the job and all of that, and he's looking round the corner of the door, and he comes along and slams the door, and it hits Stephen Lewis on the forehead. Apparently, he had to go away to hospital to get checked for concussion. And next time you see him in it, you do see him with a plaster on his head. Obviously, that wouldn't have been planned. Obviously, the way that it works like that when you're filming scenes like that, you go to put your foot in the door so that the door hits your foot, and then you make it look like it's hit your head. But obviously, Stephen didn't do it far enough, and that's how he got hit on the head purely by accident, really. Just trying to think if there's anyone else that has, not that I can think of anybody else that I know of. Probably my chair. This chair, Charles. Maybe that's what you can hear squeaking. The chair squeaks when I move backwards and forwards on it. To do that, Charles, it takes a heck of a lot of dedication and time, and obviously a heck of a lot of searching for locations and finding them all. I mean, the ones that make up my On the Buses book, that was like about 10 years in the making to get the amount of filming locations. Obviously, I know a lot more than what was actually in the book, which came out in 2016. There's probably, I know, about 3 times as many locations now. And probably that's from, we're talking about 14 years work. I work full time as well, so it does take up a heck of a lot of time. So it's just too time consuming to do a book on other locations to nail them down and get enough in there to form another series, if you see what I mean. I have thought about doing an updated version of the filming locations book, which is, I'll just show you it just now if you haven't seen it. Which is this book here, my filming locations book. That's it there. I have thought about doing a second edition of that, but the problem is there's so many locations that I know of. This book here, if you look at the width of it, that book there has got about 220 locations in it. Now I know somewhere around about 600, so it'll be about 3 times the width of that. And it's the cost of getting all the pictures in. The more pictures you have in a book, the more expensive it is to produce. So that's another problem with doing another book. There is an option of sort of like maybe splitting it and doing a locations book for the TV series and the separate one for the films. But myself, I would probably prefer to keep them all in one book. Amy? They probably have been introduced before the show, I would imagine, Amy. As for who was the audience warm-up person, I had heard who it was, but I can't remember for the love of me who it was now. So I couldn't tell you without making something up. So I would need longer to think on that one. I have heard who it was, but the name escapes me just now. Do you mean how they done it, or who actually? You know who actually done it? It was Stanley flung the cigarette down the ignited the petrol. That's what caused it to blow up. The actual act of it, though, would just been used sort of like pyrotechnics that wouldn't have caused any damage whatsoever. Obviously, that's how it would have been. They would have performed that stunt. So you keep the questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. The storerooms, do you mean? Do you mean the whereabouts was the storerooms? If you're asking where the storerooms are or where, they weren't at the holiday camp. They're most likely back at Elstree Studios. Someone does believe that they're located behind, I think it is, where stage 8 is now. I think it is. Stage 7, or maybe stage 7, right by the canteen at the block that has remained there all the time and didn't get knocked down when they put the Tesco's there, if that's what you're asking. Of course, in the film, they got the toilet from the storeroom, but the filming location of the storeroom, it wasn't at the holiday camp, it was back at Elstree Studios. So just keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them when I see them on the screen. It was Windsor Safari Park, which is now Legoland. So that closed down, I think, in the early 1990s. I think it was 1992 that the safari park closed down. Not that I've heard of, Charles. As I say, myself and my colleague who organised the on the buses events, the cast reunion events, and we contacted the rights holders for the DVDs distribution, and that is Studio Canal, and they weren't really enthused enough to put out our DVD for the 50th anniversary. So I can't see how they, even for the anniversary of Holiday on the Buses, it'll be any different. So I would say unlikely, which is a shame, really. I'd like to see some extras put onto them more than anything. Wouldn't need really necessarily need a Blu-ray release, just a DVD with extras on them. Hi, Cheetah. Yeah, I hope you're fine. Yeah, I'm not too bad. If you mean in the bus, Michael shared what happened to the bus from Mutiny on the Buses, then that bus ended up being transported out to Hong Kong, and it served on the Kowloon, I think it was, bus services in Hong Kong before it was finally scrapped. Around about the 1990s that bus got scrapped. So keep your questions coming in. Any questions do with the on the buses, the cast, the crew, filming locations, anything like that, then just ask away and I'll answer them for you. Anything to do with books or the events or walking tours, I'll answer them for you as well. Not of the main cast, but there's plenty of supporting actors who had big parts in the episodes and the spin-off films. There's still a lot still around, but unfortunately, all of the main cast are no longer with us. Anna being the last one to pass away last February, I think it was now. Well, a year gone February. Not that I know of. What do you mean by tablets? I wouldn't know it wasn't made public information, Michael. They don't make information like that public. I mean, that's his private affairs, what he done, whether he was on medication or not. It wasn't documented anywhere at all. Yeah, I know that, but it's not documented anywhere. Doesn't come out in the newspapers and say Bob Grant has taken antidepressants or anything like that, did it? It's just one of those things. It might very well have been. It might not have been. I don't know. There's a good chance that he was. He probably prescribed it for his doctor, more than likely, but can't say definitely because I'm not in a position to say that. So one thing I do find frustrating with all about Free on the Buses is, and I'm seeing it now with Anna Karen, which is a sad thing. since Anna Karen's passed. Always with Bob, and now it's going to be with Anna. I can see it happening now. There's more discussion about how they passed rather than their careers. People want to linger on how they passed rather than what their wonderful careers, what they got up to in their careers. I've noticed a lot with Anna Karen's posts that people post up, and anybody posts up a photograph of her now, it always comes back down to how she passed away, which is, I don't see the sense to it. You want to celebrate a person's life, not talk about how she died. It's totally sort of wrong, in my opinion, if you see what I mean. Celebrate the life. I know when I come to pass, I wouldn't want people talking about how I passed away. I would want people remembering me for what I'd done in my life, as anybody would, I think. Okay, just keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. What you've got to understand is, all this snookerist, is the whole premise has changed of On the Bosses. Once you lose main characters, the rest of it gets tweaked here and there. It happens in every series when you lose a character. It's like look at a classic example is look at Still Open All Hours. They had Granville develop the same stutter that Ronnie Barker's character used to have, because they were trying to fill in for no Ronnie Barker. And that's a similar sort of thing, I suppose, to what they've done in On the Bosses. That's why all have ended up with Stan sort of gags. Plus, you've got to remember as well, by that time then, in Series 7, it was a whole different writing team that were writing the episodes. Yeah, so was Onslow. Onslow is, Granville and Still Open All Hours was as well. It's just one of those things that you have to do to fill in for the loss of someone else. Plus, as I say, you've got to remember that it was different writers that were writing then as well. They had different styles and different techniques to Ronnie Wolf and Ronnie Chesney, who had written the majority of the first 5 series of On the Bosses. I think they left towards the end of Series 5. And then the majority of Series 6 and 7 were all written by either Stephen Lewis and Bob Grant, Jonathan Lynn and George Layton, or Miles Lodge, or there was another writing partnership as well that names escape me, but they had a whole totally different team of writers by that time. And that's why it was filling them, because they were trying to fill in the gap that's that had Stan had left, if you know what I mean, with the part of Stan. I mean, there's no doubt when it came down to Series 7 may not have been as great as what had come before, but that's to be expected when you lose Reg Varney and Michael Robbins from the cast, and you haven't got Ronnie Wolf and Ronnie Chesney supplying the scripts. Obviously, the standard's going to drop a bit, but even so, having said that, it was still in the top 20 of the charts every week. So it certainly hadn't fallen off a cliff like you would have, like some people would have you believe. It was still in amongst one of the top watched sitcoms around that time as well. It may not have been what it was, but it wasn't a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. Put it this way, if you give me the chance to watch Series 7 of On the Bosses or Mrs. Brown's Boys, I know which one I would take every day at time. But Mrs. Brown's Boys like is a big in thing now. Everybody swears it's brilliant and everything like that. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. Can be anything to do with the TV series, the episodes, the films, the books that I've written, the walk-in tours that I've organised, all the events that I've organised, and anything like that. Yeah, probably if you push me into it, my favourite episode is probably the Do It Yourself. There's a lot of things that can be admired from that Do It Yourself episode, like the whole breathalyzer scene's just hilarious when he's got a mouthful of smoke and Blakey's telling him to hold on, he can't start the test and all of that. And then, of course, there's a scene when they come back after they sobered up and they find the family are all drunk as well. So if I was to push into it, I would say Do It Yourself. I don't think they ever really lingered or even thought about it themselves, to be honest, the writers. It was just something that we'd throw in there every now and again when they needed to have a comedic storyline, such as in the very first episode when they're on strike and Stan borrows Olive's bike to pedal into work and all of that. So you can assume that it wasn't walking distance just by that little scene in the very first episode. Although you do see him running home for, and the Serious Free again, you do see him running home for his lunch to get spruced up for Sally. And I think that's the Inspector's Niece episode. Yeah, as I said earlier, we brought up that. I think Amy asked earlier if any of the cast was injured, and I've mentioned that in there. Definitely gets hit by the door because someone said that they had to go away and get tested for concussion at the hospital, and that's why, as well, later on you do see a plaster on his forehead as well. So that was probably a genuine plaster and not just put on just to make it look like it banged his head. Obviously, that would have been the knack that they're supposed to do when you're doing something like that. Is you're supposed to put your foot way inside the doorway, so that when the door gets slammed, it hits your foot and not your head. But obviously, Stephen didn't put his foot in far enough, I would imagine, as what has happened there, and it's happened on the head. Yes, I like to think the feedback I got from everyone that was there at Abercrom was good. Everyone had a great time at the walking tour, so that was good. I think that was a Leyland PR2, Michael, the bus that crashed into the garden, which was a prop for the park. Pretty certain that was a Leyland PR2. Just off the top of my head, that is. It's in my book here anyway. I'll be able to confirm that by just looking in my book, my A to Z book. And I'll confirm that for you just now. No, that was the Leyland PD2 was a bus that was actually on fire. Actually, beg your pardon. So that was a Leyland Atlantean. I knew it was a Leyland with Park Royal bus with Park Royal bodywork. So it was a Leyland Atlantean, Michael. Yeah, well, I'll just iterate on that a Tavacron. Anyone that's after an event with actual celebrities going to be there, then the event that you want is the event that I'm organising, not the official fan club event. All that will be as Crazy Golf. And as for any locations tour, then obviously it's not going to be done by me, if you see what I mean. So you can see that you're getting a second class walking tour there, because it won't have all the wealth of information and all the wealth of filming locations involved in it. So just keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. That's open to sort of like, it's very much one that's open to debate, really, isn't it? It's like anything when you talk about talent, really. People see different talents and different people and all of that, and different talents of in a certain area appeal to people more than some other people. So it's a very sort of generalized answer that could be given. Myself, the actors who were really actors were the sorts of Bob Grant and Michael Robbins and Stephen Lewis. I would say would be the three that I would put up there, because they were actual actors, whereas the rest were more like from like Doris came from. Obviously, she learned her trade at a very, very, very early age. I mean, she was performing on stage like a family theatre and all that at the age of 2.5. But she done a lot of sort of like variety stuff and all of that, whereas Bob was trained in acting. Same with Stephen. Same with Michael was very good at all ranges of things. Same with like Reg started off as a entertainer, more of an entertainer and comic, and then branched out into acting. A lot of people, obviously being on the buses, fans would say Reg was a favourite, so they would automatically put him down as having the most talent, if you see what I mean. But if we talk about actors in terms of acting ability, then I would put at the top, somewhere at the top, and vying for that would be Bob, Stephen, and Michael Robbins, I would say. Amy, what did the cast? Well, they all went on to do varying different sort of stuff. Reg, obviously, he went on to do the Down the Gate in 75, 76. But then he went into semi-retirement in the early 1980s because he had a series of strokes. He did perform and playing his piano and all that on cruise ships and such like. But he was sort of like semi-retired from the mid-1980s onwards. He did crop up now and again on some shows, odd shows here and there. Bob Grant was highly active on stage from On the Buses end and right up until the mid-1980s. Then he had his breakdown when work started to dry up, but he did go back on and have more stage roles in the 90s and like even up to the end of the 1990s. So he was still even active and doing stage work even into the late 1990s. Stephen, of course, went on to do plenty. He went on to be in the spin-off Don't Drink the Water. He was also in other series like Oh Dr. Beeching, Last of the Summer Wine, of course. So he was active right up until about maybe 2010, something like that. Doris was still active right up until the late 1990s, I do believe. She acted right up until she was in her late 80s. Anna, of course, as well, went on to be in EastEnders, was in the rag trade as well in the late 70s. Went on to be in EastEnders. She was also in episodes of Good Night, Sweetheart. So she was active right up until about 2000, and also with in later years she taught at our drama school as well. And you had you have a mistake. Michael Robbins went on. He was in lots and lots of stuff after On the Buses. Obviously, most famous was he was in the Pink Panther film. He also done stuff like Doctor Who. He also done the series called The Fuzz. He was also in an episode of The Good Life, The Sweeney. I think he was cropped up in Minder as well, George and Mildred. So he done lots and lots up until, sadly, when he got his cancer. He was, I think the last credited thing that he was actually in was Last of the Summer Wine in terms of creative stuff. He was in an actual documentary that was about a Catholic, a famous Catholic church in France somewhere, and and that's I think that's me gone through them all then, isn't it, really? It is quite possible, but I couldn't confirm that one way or another, Amy. Yeah, that's right, Fox. I mean, at the end of the day, if they're not when these DVD releases come out, they tend to come out for a special reason, for an anniversary. So if they're not going to release them for an anniversary, then I can't see them releasing it 2 years down the line when an anniversary's gone, because that's a golden opportunity to plug something saying, hey, it's 50 years since Holiday on the Buses or 50 years since On the Buses started. But they're not bothering for a big thing like that. Yeah, that was Madeline Mills, Scotty. Sadly, she passed away. I think it was cancer in the early 2000s. I think it was sometime, maybe 2000, maybe 2005, 2010, something like that. Again, that was something that wasn't really ever reported anywhere. I only found that out by digging around somewhere an obsolete web forum or something like that. And I found somebody was asking questions about her, and then it cropped up. Somebody replied back and said she was my sister. Sadly, she passed away with cancer. But apart from that, you wouldn't really know it because it wasn't reported anywhere on the news or anything like that. What I would say to that is, Paul, is one recent reviewer doesn't make it. The acid test is it's still being shown on telly 50 years after. Things that are painfully unfunny don't get repeated 50 years later on television. Sorry, no. I mean, I know there was a poll out that was I know it was a show that they'd done it. It was supposed to be the worst sitcoms of all time, and I think number one was the Bottle Boys. Now, the Bottle Boys doesn't get repeated on telly. I don't think it's ever been repeated on telly. It was a sitcom set around was it a juice factory or something like that? Hence the name Bottle Boys, or was it a milk thingy or something like that? But anyway, that didn't. That's never been repeated on the buses. It's still getting repeated 50 years after it first aired on television. So sorry, but a reviewer might think that it's crass or painfully unfunny, but the fact of the matter is it's still being repeated on television because obviously the viewing figures are still very good for it. The viewing figures are very good because it is a very funny sitcom, not painfully unfunny. One person might think that, but that's one person, isn't it? There's a lot of people today who think Mrs. Brown's Boys is side-splittingly funny, but I don't see it myself, but there you go. No, he never moved to Australia. I think he toured Australia for a while, and then, but he was never going to stay in Australia. He did have a holiday villa out in Malta that he did go over to stay in during the winter months when it got cold in the UK. But in the last few years, he was in a retirement home down at Budley Salterton. There and scenes like that, Stephen, the people that you get in the rear of shot would mainly be you would mainly have extras, but there would be the odd one or two unawares genuine holiday makers there, but there were mainly extras that you see in the backs of the shots around and then around the holiday camp, although there are genuine holiday makers as well. Yeah, that was Scotty. That was Alan Curtis. Sadly, he passed away just recently, the last 3-4 years ago. Seen him at our carry-on event that went to very. Even though in his later years he'd had a series of strokes, but he was very sharp-minded, but his limbs had been affected. He was walking with a Zimmer frame, but his mind was still as sharp as a tack. He could remember doing all sorts of stuff on stage, like Whoops Baghdad, working with Spike Milligan and all of that as well. So his mind was still as sharp as a tack, but sadly, that's what happens sometimes with strokes. It can affect you in different ways, and Alan's case, it was a limbs, but he was really sharp. Where he remembered so much about his career. It was really great meeting him at a carry-on event. I think it was down at Ealing. Paul, yeah. As we said, we've been talking about the films or TV shows. You can see Fox Mulder's added his thoughts on it as well. Like we've said, I definitely don't see a Blu-ray release happening. I know there was talk, some joker about 2 years ago said it was coming out and they had got clearance for it to come out on Blu-ray. That was a total scam. And I think he was just planning on bootlegging a release. And then when he was told that Studio Canal had been informed, he wiped all his Twitter page and everything like that and disappeared off the face of the earth. But as for a bona fide Blu-ray DVD release, I can't see it happening. As I say, myself and Fox Mulder there, we have been in touch with Studio Canal since the 50th anniversary. So that was 2019. We're asking them to bring out a 50th anniversary celebrate 50th anniversary of On the Buses. They didn't see the merits to it. They didn't see the market for it, I suppose you could say. So I don't really see them doing it now. We're again, they're getting asked again for the Holiday on the Buses anniversary, but again, there doesn't seem to be much of an appetite for that to happen. So I don't really see it happening, sadly. To me, more than anything, I would rather see the films, the DVDs, films getting released, or the TV series with some extras on it, some really good extras, commentaries, such like. I mean, it's quite silly when you think about it, because you've actually got probably better standard of films released in Australia than what you have here, because you've actually released them with the trailers flung in as well. The actual film trailers you get as the extras. I think it's Britannia released them down in Australia, but here we don't have anything with any really notable extras on them of any note. And they were actually a British. It's a British show, if you see what I mean, with on the buses. So it's a bit embarrassing that you've got foreign companies with better standard releases than what they have in the actual country that invented it. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. It'll be anything to do with the TV series, the films, the buses they use, the filming locations, anything to do with my books or the events or the walking tours that I organise. Just post them up and I'll answer them for you. I've got a Facebook page, Paul, on Facebook. I mean, it depends. I can just, if you just hold on, Paul, I'll just. So if you just hold on just now, Paul. So the Holiday on the Buses Facebook page is there. That's the Holiday on the Buses Facebook page I've just posted up. If you're interested in any of my my walking tours on Facebook, then the walking tours that I do, you'll find news about it there. But I do post up the news here on there as well on the my channel as well. On this channel here, I will post up any breaking news. Yeah, it's been an honour, Paul, having Doris there cutting the ribbon. Did you get any photos of it at all? I've been there with camera, no doubt about it. As I said earlier on, Imelda Kinapo, my favourite episode is Brew It Yourself, where Stan gets drunk on his homemade beer. And then he has to do a breathalyzer test. And then when he sobers up and comes home, you've got the family all drunk. No, but Neil, when we're talking about extras, though, what I would say deem is more important for extras, you won't get out cuts and things like that. And as you say, anything that was edited out would remain, would just get binned, all of that stuff, or they would reuse the film, record over it because the tape was so valuable back then. In terms of extras, though, we're talking more about things like commentaries and um, interviews and stuff like that would be really good to have on or part of a box set. Um, yeah, and Fluxington. Yeah, Terry's appearances, he had very various ones. Obviously, his biggest parts were he always played like a straight man's role, like as in the when he was selling the toilet to the Butler family, and then a similar sort of straight side to him when he's in the depot in the workshop playing Nobby, isn't he? And when he's in the film as well, they're all sort of straight parts that he plays. Yeah, I'm just typing his name for you now. Yeah, Scotty. That's his name there. Yeah, I suppose that's understandable, Paul. Well, he's no relation, definitely no relation to Reg. None of his siblings, his brothers and sisters, went into the trade at all, anyway, as I recall it. Yeah, there's certain films like that though, Paul, just ones that are just nice to get you sort of like reminiscing and stuff like that. It's like Porridge. I like the Porridge film was similar like that. Um, yeah, I don't think it ever really was. Neil, I mean, there was nothing really suspicious about it anyway, in terms of how it started. It wasn't like somebody put something through the letterbox and set a fire like that. It was just a discarded cigarette end, is what the belief was to be. So there's no real mystery to it, I suppose. So um, best just sort of like leaving it at that, I suppose, just a tragic accident. Yeah, what sparked such a keen interest in the program. Just basically, it was more of about our you start on a sort of like a crusade to learn more, and you just want to learn more and more and more about it. And for me, that's how it was. I mean, I remember I would only been about a year old when it first aired on television, so it's not the um, that I could remember watching the first runs. I remember watching the first set of repeats, reruns of the series probably around about 74, 75. And then they disappeared off the screens from about the late 70s onwards up until about the mid 1990s. And then I caught them on, I think it was Granada Men and Motors or something like that. And just started and then began watching them through adult eyes, and then you could get the more saucy jokes. Then your mind was dirty enough to get those sort of jokes. It was like watching it again for the first time through adult eyes, and then you just sort of like want to know more after that. It's also sort of like it's got sort of like an appeal as well in terms of how accurate it is of depicting that time back then as well. A very accurate timepiece of that time. It covered a heck of a lot of stuff that was true to life, such as the financial struggles that people had around then. Decimalisation, I had an episode that covered that, covered the disputes, the strikes and battle between the union and the management and all of that, which was very prevalent at that time as well. So there was a heck of a lot. The films covered the sort of like the rise of the women into taking over men's jobs and the driving the buses, which was actually happening around about that time. I think it was in Nottingham. The writers pulled that story, so it was all prevalent to things that were happening at that time. So it's a very historic and very accurate timepiece as well. So it's not just the humour side of it. There's other sides to it that appeals as well. Um, and I liked writing as a kid, and that's how I got into writing books because I'd started a forum by this time, and on the buses forum, and there was talk of an on the buses book coming out, but that fell through. So someone did say to me, the people on my forum said, "Why don't you write a book? You know a lot about it and all of that." And then I thought to myself, "Yeah, I could give that a go," because I hadn't written anything for years and years since I was sort of like still at school, and I thought I'll give it a go, and then that's how that writing side of it came about, and then it sort of like expanded out into learning more about film locations and such like. Yeah, a lot of them did, Scotty. They played a lot of them. There was a lot of actors and actresses who were in several episodes and played different characters. Terry Duggan was one, obviously. Pat done that. Andrea Lawrence was another. Madeline Mills was another. John Lyons was another. Um, Avril Gaynor was another. So there was a lot of people, and Ursula Mohan, who played different characters and on the buses. Well, it wasn't, to be fair, Neil, it isn't really a secret that Anna liked a cigarette, basically. So it's quite a sort of like a renowned fact. Plus, as well, Anna had a problem with arthritis in later years as well, which isn't a very sort of good thing to have when you're sitting in a wheelchair smoking, if you see what I mean. So it's all sort of like you can put two and two together quite easily. As I said, there was nothing nefarious about it, like, oh, someone put a smoke bomb through a door or something like that and smashed a window. Otherwise, it would have been a worthwhile investigation and all of that. It was just a tragic accident, really, just really sad. But there you go. I prefer to just to think more of Anna as she was and on the buses and other work like EastEnders and such like, rather than sort of linger on the sad circumstances of her passing. As I say, it's all purely subjective, really. I mean, I suppose there must be things that your golf partners and your wife thinks are excellent, but you don't like at all. It's all about opinions, really. At the end of the day, isn't it? We've all got one. So, I mean, the films get repeated probably about maybe, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times a year, and they're still sort of like well worth a watch, if you see what I mean. It's not something that you feel fed up about watching. You always feel that you need to watch it, even though you've seen it about 4 or 5 times earlier in the year. Um, yeah, that's right. She's a teacher, at least she was. I'm not sure if she's still teaching now. Um, yeah, and I've just posted that up on my Facebook. I went through that, Imelda, on my Facebook group, which I posted up a link to earlier on. Just went like a series of posts on ones that got away. So there's still around about maybe something around about 30 that haven't been found yet from the TV series and films. In terms of ones that I know of now, the numbers are up around about 575 or something like that. Once I add more to them, when I do more visits to locations that I need to visit to photograph, it will be well over 600. I can tell you that much. The ones that haven't been found, if you're not on their Facebook channel, I can run you through them now, which well is all the scenes outdoors in the country, out in the countryside. When and the episode Nowhere to Go, when the family are on the way to Aunt Maud's and it crashes, and you see the wheel running away past a finger post sign on a country lane. All of these scenes from that episode, the ones out in the countryside, haven't been found yet. They are believed to be um, uh, I strongly suspect the early parts of it were filmed up in just south of Potter's Bar. I would disagree with that though, Paul. As in terms of, I'll just quote a man, answer Meldon first about the props. I'm not really a collector of props. I've got one or two sort of stuff that have been given to me or stuff like that, but not really in terms of props. No, I don't really collect sort of stuff like that. I do have to disagree with you, Paul, though, about the early episodes not being very good, which is not really the case at all. Because if they weren't very good, the second series wouldn't have been commissioned. Obviously, they need to be decent for LWT. When LWT created On the Buses, there was absolutely no guarantee. They only commissioned the one series. So it all depended on what the viewing figures were like and the feedback. And obviously, it was very good for them to commission a second series. So the episodes were good. I would disagree with that, with them not being very good. I would say they were very good episodes. Put it this way, Series 1, you would ask anybody and they would have Series 1 episodes over Series 7 episodes, for example. Probably Series over Series, maybe even over Series 6 episodes as well. So they were by no means putting there not very good episodes. I would have to disagree there. Yeah, that's right, Neil. We did say that was up ITV place up in Leeds. What you've got to remember is, Paul, as well, another thing that needs to be remembered here about Cicely was she wasn't like Doris. They were two totally different actresses. Doris was well versed in TV work. TV work was totally different from stage work, which is where Cicely was more well versed in. She was virtually completely a stage actress. For a TV series, for a stage role, you just need to learn one script and you reuse that script every night or every two showings a day, whenever how many times you've got to go out on stage and perform it. Whereas a TV series is totally different. On the Buses, they had to learn the new script every week. So when that's new to somebody asking you, giving you a script and say you've got to learn that inside a week, obviously people that are not used to that are going to struggle with it, and that was the case with Cicely. But it didn't affect the episodes as for me, because obviously they were done very well enough for them to commission a second series. Obviously, the first choice for the mum was going to be Doris anyway, but Doris wasn't available, so they had to bring in Cicely Courtnidge for it. It was always going to be Doris, though. And that's why Doris came in for the second series, because she was then available for the second series onwards. Of course, if anybody's here that's joined that link on the Facebook to my locations group, you'll need to scroll down to have a look at my all of those posts I was talking about, the ones that got away, and plus the run throughs that I've done of every known location. in my database, or failing that, you can check the videos out on this Facebook channel, the YouTube channel here. I've got all the video, all the locations in video format. Just as it was, Scotty, because she was mostly seen to be doing the cooking in the episodes as well. That's why you didn't see her sitting down to eating. It was mostly Stan and Arthur and Olive that were sitting there eating, delivering the punchlines to one another. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. Well, there are more as well that I've got to go down to in Sutton. There's some locations that I want to go down and photograph. There's some just to add on for the Series 7 episodes when they filmed down in Sutton for, and the parts of the opening and closing credits. I don't know what you mean by found hard, Scotty, and what way? Well, that would be when he was telling about the radio, and they tuned in, and there was somebody playing a mandolin or something in the house opposite or something like that. They thought they had got hold of something on the radio, but it wasn't. It was some next door neighbour playing a mandolin or something like that, if I remember rightly. I don't know what you mean by the hardest episode. My guess would have been on the omnibuses, because the filming schedule would have been really tight for that. And there'll probably been a lot of filming down in they had to travel all the way down to East Sussex, just to the east of Haywards Heath. That's what I would say would probably have been the hardest in terms of the amount of time that it would have taken to do the filming on location. Plus, as well, that is it was a tough episode for Anna Karen, because he had what do you call it? She actually had that metal fence strapped to her back, which she wasn't very happy with at all. And Terry Duggan actually had to have a word with the director, Brian Izzard, and said she shouldn't have that on her back. So that's probably another episode that they found hard. Plus, as I say, there was a heck of a lot of filming on location for that one. Paul, now Reg left because he was ordered to rest by his doctor. Now, I would imagine that, especially for Reg, because he had a history of heart attacks. He had a heart attack in the mid-1960s, and then was working harder on the buses. So I would imagine that he was the sort that, probably for all of them, had to have medicals at the starts of series. They probably realised that with his heart problems, he was told that he had to rest. you either had to rest, and what that meant was a long rest, like a couple of months out. So they give them the option. They either done all of the Series 7 on the buses and missed holiday on the buses, or he done half of holiday or Series 7, then took the rest, and then you could come back for holiday on the buses, which is what he actually chose to do. There's still a handful. There's maybe about half a dozen or something like that from the films to uncover. They're mostly from the TV series, the undiscovered filming locations. There are ones that I've got to go down and photograph. I know where they actually are. That's not an issue. It's just going down to actually photograph them. Yeah, cheers, Paul. Yeah, that's right. They just brought it along from the studio cam team, which was just along the corridor, basically. And you can see that it was good food because they always tucked in well to it when they were filming it. It's not like they were pushing it around the plate without even bothering to eat it. Well, it still has a lot of people fooled now, Imelda, and a lot of people will still think and insist that the bus was underwater, but it wasn't at all. Obviously, you'd know that anyway because the what do we call it? The bus was totally protected by Crossville Motor Services, so they wouldn't have allowed that bus to go anywhere near the sea because that was still a bus in service. It wasn't a case of where they could do what they wanted with the bus and destroy it. They had to be really careful with it. That's how they needed to do that scene in a very sort of artistic way, very creative thinking to make it look like it was underwater. Now, for the simple reason, Scotty, she wouldn't have been nervous at all because it wasn't her bottom that was in the swimming pool anyway. It's her standing bum that you actually see in holiday on the buses. It's nothing to do with Anna Karen there. Yeah, there's ones there. We know where they are, but obviously there's no way of actually pinpointing where they because obviously it's totally changed now at the Windsor Safari Park. The ones from the films that I'm talking of are the ones of the storerooms and the holiday on the buses. Definitely not at the holiday camp. They're more likely thought to be at the rear of stage 7 at Elstree Studios, but getting in there to actually photograph that location is well nigh impossible, obviously, with security and all of that. So it's not something that I don't think that will ever get down, not unless I was to get permission from somebody at the studios to be able to go in there and photograph it. As for the other ones, there's a couple of other ones when the bus is going along a country lane and you see a hedge in the background and a row of trees beyond that. Still, I'm about 95% certain that I know where that is, and I'm even more sort of like certain now because somebody zoomed in on that when I posted that up in the ones that got away serious, and the trees in the background do seem to match up with the trees that were in the background then to ones that are in the background now. So I would say that one of those locations I've found. There's another location when the bus is going past and you see an ornate old wall in the background and you see rolling hills beyond that in the background. I'm near enough certain that I've already matched that up, but there's one or two people who disagree with me, so I'm loath to sort of like say that as a confirmed location. No, I'm not surprised at all, really. I mean, all of the the aging actors were in it at some point anyway, so why not Stephen Lewis? When you look at the amount of aging actors that have turned up in it, like Brian Murphy, um, Wayne Grady, obviously people like Brian Wilde, who was in it up until a great age, and of course Bill Owen and Peter Sallis. She still teaches grammar, to my knowledge, and take on any roles that comes up her way. But yeah, she's obviously not doing. You wouldn't, as you'd expect at that age, you're not going to be working full throttle on any seriousness of such at that age. But she does still teach at our, as far as I know, at our drama school. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. Good actress, Pat Nye, who played Blake's mum, because she got right across the character that she was playing. She must be a really dislikable character, and that's how the character came across. So she really depicted the part really well. I didn't like the character, but that's, I suppose, what it was trying to put across anyway. So Yeah, that's true, Neil. It's something that might have to look into trying. Obviously, there is one or two other ones there that are actually, I know where one of them is in the corridor there that to photograph as well, so that you probably end up with about another three locations from within the actual part of the studios that have remained there since they filmed on the buses, obviously. Well, it might actually end up being actually four because it'll probably be an enhanced one of the from roughly the backyard of the Butler House, which was the manager's house, which is on the grounds of where the LC car park is now, the LC Studios car park. All right, fat lad, good to see you here. How many episodes did they write? Off the top of my head, I would say it'd be about 11. I'll check that though for you by looking at my book where I've got all that written down. So in my first book, and I'll tell you how many they wrote. I guess is it something around about the 11 mark. I'll just tell you that just now. 12 scripts. The first script was a series 5, episode 13, Vacancy for Inspector. So it was 12 that they actually wrote. BBAS. Yeah, Reg was the star, obviously, of the show. He was the highest paid actress. Yeah, that's certainly an idea as well, Neil. Ooh. I mean, after Ronnie Wolf and Ronnie Chesney, they were the most prolific writers, and obviously they were talented writers in their own right. Anyway, Stephen Lewis, of course, had already penned the hit stage show, went on to be a film, of course, Sparrows Can't Sing. And obviously, Bob wrote his own stage shows as well. So they were all they were very talented playwrights in their own right. Anyway, Bob and Stephen were. No, they didn't actually have any experience from that, but they did have extensive experience, obviously, because obviously before on the buses, the big hit, the first big hit on television was the Rag Trade. And Ronnie Wolf did actually used to work in a fabrics factory and before he started writing scripts That was when he started getting into writing scripts. He used to write sort of like plays that were put on at sort of like Christmas parties at the stage at the actual fabrics factory that he worked in. He done that for a short time. And so that's obviously pulled a lot of the experience from working there to put all of them into stories in the along the lines of the rag trade. So they did how they had a sort of a uniformed way of working, like at the events that I used to organise. They did state that Bob, Ronnie Wolf more wrote the lines, and Ronnie Chesney created the situations. If you see, yeah, he created the funny situations, and Bob, Ronnie Wolf supplied the comedic lines to it. I think the toilet script, the one from the system, that was actually something that Ronnie Chesney had a problem with plumbing in a toilet as well. So a lot of this stuff they did pull from their own experiences and ended up as a result into on the buses. So I suppose that's why a lot of them were so accurate in certain ways, and the how they worked as a team was interesting as well. Like one created the situation, the other one created the comedic lines to play around the situation. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's why Reg. That's why Reg. When they were before they came out when they were thinking up the idea from the buses, they wanted to do something uniform related because Dad's Army had just started at that time, was a big success. So that's how they came out with buses for that bus uniforms, and it was always written with Reg Varney in mind for the lead part of Stan Butler. Yeah, they never filmed in houses. They actually always filmed in the actual studio sets for inside houses for for studios for house scenes. If you see what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, it was a live audience that they filmed in front of. We know that because Ronnie Chesney at one of my events as well stated to the members there was only one time that needed to cut filming because somebody in the audience was laughing so hard. That was the episode The New Uniforms when Stan begins measuring Arthur's sausages. Somebody you can hear if you watch that now. Somebody's actually laughing so hard and they needed to stop filming. So that's how you know it's a live audience. It's not like sometimes you can tell it's just canned laughter because it's always a generic same laugh, same kind of laughter. Yeah, that's it. Like sometimes when you get, as I say, canned laughter, you can tell because it's just sort of like the same sort of level of laughter all the time. Whereas on the buses, there was different scales of laughter, different kinds of laughter as well. Yeah, that's like Scotty, definitely. So keep your questions coming in. Anything to do with the TV series and films? Anything to do with my books or the walking tours or the events I organise? Anything to do with filming locations? Just ask them here and I'll answer them as soon as I see them on the screen. The locate, if you've been up and you've had a look at it, obviously the video that I've done for the filming the walking tours. The amount of videos were restricted, obviously, because I couldn't record the videos because I was busy myself. So I had to garner videos from various sources. That's why you might not see a full, complete video of the whole event. Wasn't really possible because obviously a lot of the time I was talking to the people that were there that had paid to attend the event. So couldn't exactly be videoing while I was telling them about the filming locations. So that is basically the videos that you've got there is all the material that I had to put onto it for the, but I hope you got the flavour of the kind of event that it was. Oh, there was a few fluffed lines along the way, which you notice when you watch it, sort of like closely. You'll notice the fluff lines come out, but to me, it's natural anyway. We all fluff our lines anyway in real life. We all make a gaff, so to me, it makes it more realistic that they keep them in. Obviously, they kept them in because of time scale. They had to get everything was on such a tight time scale. They weren't just going to record waste tape and record it just for a slight fluff of a line. They would just say, "All right, that'll do. We'll just go with that." And that's why a lot of the times they stayed in the fluff lines, which I think is better anyway because it shows that there was. We all fluff lines in real life, so it makes it appear more real to life. If you get what I'm saying. Um, it was once I'd had first one book published. Obviously, the first book that came out was this book, and how that came about with the publishers there is got some info and some help, and they pointed me in the right direction from an author of Carry On Books called Kevin Snellgrove that I knew already. I had him as a Facebook friend and such like, and he pointed me in the direction of Apex Publishing. And I sent the script to them, and they had a look and accepted it. And then once you've got one book there, they took their I've done a second book with them, which was the quiz book, and then the A to Z. Obviously, they then I went to another company for that A to Z, and the same with the A to Z was sort of like partly sort of like I put some more money into that, and they to get it published. Uh, and the other book, the film locations, is all like self-published. So that's how they all came right in different ways, the publishing of them. Of course, it is a myth of ones people have seen people for accusing people of fluffing lines like Blakey calling Jack Arthur, but he's not really. He's calling him Harper. That's like he's got his H because Jack's surname is Harper. So it's not a fluff of a line in terms of Stephen Lewis. It was what he was calling him Harper, which is sounds like Arthur, but it wasn't. So keep your questions coming in. You got any more questions about on the buses? Anything to do with films, a TV series? Yeah, that's good, Emil. Then, yeah, thanks for popping in. Glad you like the uploads. There'll be more coming along periodically later on in the year, no doubt. Not too sure when. Obviously, they'll be hoping to get to press that and to do some within the holiday camp. Maybe even try and hold something like a live Q&A from within the holiday camp. So watch out for that. And also, you've got I've got a trip down to Haywards Heath in East Sussex. So there'll be filming locations from there, also Sutton. So there's still a fair few locations to visit and video for and such like. Cheers, B-Bass. Anyone that's watching as well, it's an idea. If you've watched any of my videos on the channel, if you want, feel free to share them around on social media places and all of that. And it brings in more, hopefully brings in more viewers, more members to the channel. And that would be great. So if you watch the videos and you like them, then post them around on any of your Facebook channels, share them there. That'd be great because the more people that watch them, the better. The more members that we get here, the better as well. And by the way, yeah, I am on the conquest here. They did say at the start of the year, I think it was, I think I had about 1,600 members and now up to 1,775. And the plan was to get up to 2,000 by the end of the year. So like 225 short of that at the moment, but hopefully we'll get there up to 2,000 subscribers, sorry. So keep your questions coming in. Anything to do with the TV series, the films, cast, crew, the production side of things, anything to do with the filming locations, just post them up and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them. Yeah, Michael was very active in terms of what the amount of different. I think it was because he wasn't really tied down to any one series. So he spread himself around. He could be on, like he was on the Saint, stuff like the Saint. Also, Till Death Is Depart, other stuff like down the years that he was in Sweeney, Profession. I mean, George and Mildred, the Man About the House film, one of the Pink Panther films. You know, he'd done so many roles. I think he was probably the most active on TV and films of all the casting on the buses in terms of how many actual credits he had in different TV series and films. Yeah, Scotty certainly is still a pilot. Hi, James. Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Hope you're okay. Hope you had a good Easter. I think the last work he had on TV was actually a documentary. It was about our Catholic church in France somewhere. I did think his last TV credit was One Foot in the Grave. Actually, done something beyond that. I see the last actual credit was in Sickness and in Health. Yeah, I think the last thing I called the IMDb, just looking at the now, the last actual thing that he was in Sickness and Health, an episode of that. So it was the last serious of and Sickness and in Health. Yeah, the fourth episode of Series 6, and that aired in March 1992. So that was his last credit on TV. Although I'm pretty sure he done something after that, which was like a documentary. Obviously, that'd be credited as himself. He's not actually playing a character. He was that was something totally different that he was doing. It was like a documentary that he was doing. I'm sure that was after. I think that was his very last thing that he done. Let's see. Here we go. It's not got it here, but no, he done something about a church, and I'm sure that was the very last thing that he done. A Little Bit of Heaven, the show was called. But that it says it was one of his last TV appearances, so perhaps the In Sickness and in Health was actually his last. Let's see when that was. That A Little Bit of Heaven. So keep your questions coming in. Just a face pack, that's all it was to make him look younger. Good bit of makeup to make his face look red. That's all that would have been. It wouldn't have been a mask that done any harm to him. Yeah, Damaris Heyman. That's who that was, Scotty. The actor sadly passed away a few years ago as well now. I think you see her, she turns up in an episode of, well, she's in an episode of Sweeney. I know that for a fact. She was also in an episode of Steptoe's Son. So keep your questions coming in. She never really, that actress didn't really make it in terms of a big career. Could be various reasons with women actors as well. Obviously, a lot of them got married and maybe fell out of acting, started their family, and never got back into acting again, or found it tough to get back into acting, or maybe didn't want to get back into acting. So keep your questions coming in. If you've got any more questions, just post them up and I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. I'm not going to go for the eye candy ones, Neil. I'll go for the one that I thought was the best actress, which I would go for as Eupha Joyce, who played Jessie in the episode The Allowance. I think it's so. It's a tough one, B base, because in one way you can say that you would think it to be easier because there's so many different channels out there now, but your mainstream channels now are basically there's so few sort of like creative programs that are on, if you see what I mean. They're all there's so many programs that are celebrity based or house improvement based or antiques shows based or cookery based. There's not actually anything for enough dramas and comedies for that need actors. That's a really tough thing, I would say, for that B base. As I said earlier, Ben, it's just waiting a case of waiting to for absolute confirmation. Hoping to do that within the next week or two. Hopefully, I can we can nail down the date and say yeah, it's a definite goer. Signs are looking good though, and it's just a case of waiting for the final confirmation. So I don't want to give you a definite yes right now until we know for sure. But as I say, I will announce something up here on the. It won't be me that you PayPal. I'll tell you who to send your details and everything to. That's my co-organizer. He's the one that deals with all that side of it. I'm just helping out with that event and Prestatton. So it'll be him, but I'll tell you, you'll be told how to where to pay to for tickets for that event when they become available and go on sale. Ben. As I say, I will put an announcement up on this page. It might be in the community section when I put up a post about the. I will do probably a video as well just to confirm the actual date as well. So and there's the Facebook channels as well to go through the Facebook groups. Oh yeah, no doubt that'll be taken in on the locations too, without a shadow of a doubt. So keep your questions coming in. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. Precisely was mainly, as I said earlier on, Cicely was more of a stage actress and film actress, which is different. You could walk off of one script, and that's all you needed to learn for your time on stage. But obviously, TV, she wasn't as well versed in the TV side of things. So she struggled with the learning of a script every week, which Doris had to a T because she had already been in lots of TV and stuff. She had been in Coronation Street and such like. She was quite comfortable with the concept of learning a new script every week for television. Having to learn scripts in short space of time and remember them, which wasn't really Cicely's. But Doris was always intended for the part of Mrs. Butler anyway, for the role of Mum, but she wasn't available for the first series. So they brought Cicely Courtnidge in. But then once the second series got commissioned, because initially LWT only commissioned one series. Thankfully, it was successful enough, and they said, yeah, we'll do a second series, and so on with it. But by the time the second series, they came to make the second series, Doris was available, and she was brought in for the role. Oh yeah, she would have been highly respected. Obviously, she was. I mean, she was awarded a CBE as well for her because she was like a forces sweetheart. Okay, any more questions? Just post them up. I'll answer them for you as soon as I see them on the screen. Can be anything to do with the TV series, the films, the cast, the crew, the filming locations, anything to do with my books, or the events or the walking tours that I organise. Just ask them and I'll post them up and I'll answer them. Cheers, B-Base. Thanks for popping in and asking some questions. Hope to see you again. Nah, she wasn't Scotty, no. Just a trained pianist they brought in for the part, but wasn't an actress in any sort. The cover on that book, on this book here, if that's what you're asking there, Neil, I would imagine that came from like a publicity. Well, that book's just basically like a screen grab from there, from that one. That was the second book was artwork done by an artist called Steve Lilly, who does his own, all kinds of sitcoms. And there's what's on the back as well of it. Very talented artist, sorry. And he'd done the back cover and the front cover as well. So that was artwork all done by Steve Lilly. He also does paintings and artwork for other sitcoms and such like. This was a still from, that's on the front here, is a still from, that was in amongst Rex Features' his archive. Obviously, I wanted one that sort of like summed up the them actually filming on location, because that's what it's about, filming locations, and this summed it up perfectly, I thought, and that's why I chose that there. Yeah, that was Tara Lynn, Scotty. to me, that was good, Amy, seeing them, because it just made me, it gives you a sort of warm feeling to see that they had a laugh making it, as well as making all the fans laugh as well, and the viewers laugh as well. So it was really good to see that they were having a great laugh making it as well, which was good. Always like to see that myself. Michael done that quite a bit. He done that in the one when he nearly slips on the egg, and he's trying to be forceful, but you can hear his voice cracking because he's trying to stop himself from laughing when he's saying, like, what's going on here. That's when they're trying to mix our hangover cure for the busman. Oh, there are ones around here. You can look around on places like Rex Features. There's a couple of other ones as well. Not the names escape me just now, but it'll probably come to me later on. But Rex Features is one that you'll find them all in archives if you put them like on the buses, or maybe something like Reg Varney. You'll come across all kinds of weird and rare photos, but obviously you've got to pay for the use of them, and for the use of them and things like books and such like. Yeah, the host bloke that you're talking about, Scotty, that was Kenneth Waller, who went on to be more famously, he played Grandad in Bread, the sitcom Bread, and also I think he was in pretty sure he was in a Carry On film. I think he was in Carry On Behind, and he was also one of the inventors in the film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Yeah, no problem, Neil. Right, okay, I've been online for nearly 2.5 hours now, so I think I'm going to call it a night now. Hope you've enjoyed the question time. Obviously, I'll do it again sometime, and watch the group as well. I'll just answer your question, Neil. Where did you start? Nah, not. I wouldn't have said so, Neil. No, I don't think they ever thought about sort of like future. It was just basically they were making the show for as was then. They didn't really think of doing stuff like maybe, oh, we could do that as an extra for something or other. It wasn't sort of like, that wasn't what the industry was really too much like, not unless they were doing some sort of a documentary that was around at that time regarding on the buses and whatnot. So I'm going to call it a night now. I've been online for nearly 2.5 hours, but I will do another, obviously, in the coming weeks, months. There'll be another question time. There'll also be more videos coming up now, so there will be a video sometime when we do make that announcement on to confirm the dates and everything for the Holiday on the Buses, official Holiday on the Buses cast reunion event. Just to point out again, don't confuse that. That is not the fan club event. The fan club event is something totally different on a totally different scale to us. Our event will have celebrities, that won't. Our event will have me doing the film locations, that won't. So there you go. Ours will be backed up by the likes of big celebrities. The fan club event, not. So I'll just call it a night now. So thanks for everyone that's popped in and asked questions. Remember again, as I said, if you've all helps the channel. If you've watched one of my videos and you've liked it, share it somewhere, and on social media. Encourage more members in, and it also encourages views of the videos and everything like that. Okay, so thanks for everyone that's popped in and asked questions. I'll say good night. Good night, everyone.